Chapter 6. A New Car for Mrs. Redpost. Marvin was sitting at the dinner table. Mrs. Redpost had made chicken tacos, his favorite. He hoped she wasn't really a kidnapper. Then he'd have to lock her in the dungeon. "Mr. and Mrs. Redpost," he said, "I have something important to tell you." Mr. Redpost crunched into a taco. The juice ran down his sleeve. "Mr. and Mrs. Redpost?" asked Mrs. Redpost. "Lindsay, Jake, you need to hear this too," said Marvin. He took a breath. He wasn't quite sure how to say it. "Well," said Jacob. "Marvin Redpost is dead," said Marvin. Jacob laughed. Mr. and Mrs. Redpost stared at him. "And when did this happen?" asked Mr. Redpost. "About 9 years ago," said Marvin. "Well, I must say," Mrs. Redpost noted, "you are looking quite well, considering." Then she and Mr. Redpost cracked up. Lindsay burst into tears. "I love you, Marvin," she sobbed. "Don't be dead." "Don't cry, Lindsay," said Marvin. "I'm not dead. Marvin Redpost is dead. I'm not Marvin Redpost." Lindsay kept crying. "You're not?" asked Mr. Redpost. "No," said Marvin. He turned to his former mother. "Sorry, Mrs. Redpost. I know this comes as a great shock to you." "Well, it certainly is a surprise," she replied. "Who are you?" asked Jacob. Marvin took a deep breath. "My name is Prince Robert. I'm the lost Prince of Shampoon." "Oh, I heard about him," exclaimed Jacob. "The King of Shampoon is in Washington looking for his lost son." He turned to Marvin. "You're him? Neat!" "I think so," said Marvin. Marvin explained the whole thing to his family. How the kidnappers hid the baby prince in the hospital where Marvin Redpost was born. Then Marvin Redpost died, but they had an extra baby lying around, so they gave it to Mr. and Mrs. Redpost. "Well, it all sounds very logical," Mr. Redpost agreed. Lindsay stopped crying, but her lower lip still trembled. Marvin felt sorry for her. It is always hardest on the children. "I've got red hair and blue eyes," Marvin said. "Everyone else in this family has brown hair and brown eyes." "So what do you plan to do about this?" asked Mrs. Redpost. "Stuart got the phone number from the news," said Marvin. "I called it. I spoke to Lady Jennifer, Duchess of Bathwater." Marvin stopped. Now came the hard part. "I'm supposed to go to the Watergate Hotel tomorrow at 4:30 for a blood test. Can you please take me there, Mrs. Redpost?" She looked at him. "I know it's asking a lot," said Marvin, "especially since you're not my mother. But I'm sure the king would be very grateful. He'll probably pay for the gas. I bet he'd even buy you a new car." "I'll be happy to," said Mrs. Redpost. "Thank you," said Marvin. "I'm going to miss you, Marvin," said Mrs. Redpost.